I should have known something was off when Max called me into his office at 4:47 p.m. on a Friday. Not 4:45, not 5 to 4:47. Like he'd been watching the clock, waiting for that exact moment when most people would be mentally checked out but still technically on duty. Jordan, close the door behind you. Maxwell Harlan had been CEO of Valorith Consulting for 8 years. He was the kind of guy who still talked about his MBA from Wharton like it happened yesterday instead of 25 years ago. Grey hair perfectly styled, expensive suits, and a handshake that lingered just long enough to make you uncomfortable. I'd been at Valorith for 7 years. 7 years of proving myself, of staying late, of turning around impossible projects. Just 3 weeks earlier, I'd wrapped up the Meridian Analytics overhaul, a project that had been bleeding money for 6 months before they handed it to me. I'd pulled together a team, streamlined their data architecture, and delivered it 2 weeks early. The client was so happy they'd already signed on for Phase 2. Our Q3 revenue jumped 40% because of that project alone. Have a seat, Max said, not looking up from his laptop. I wanted to talk to you about the VP of Strategy position. My heart did a little jump. Finally. The position had been open for 3 months, and everyone knew I was the logical choice. I'd been doing the work already, managing client relationships, leading cross-functional teams, developing the strategic roadmaps that kept our projects on track. I know you've been interested in the role, Max continued, finally closing his laptop and leaning back in his chair. And I want to be honest with you. Here it comes, I thought. The promotion, the raise, the recognition I'd been working toward for years. You're good at what you do, Jordan. Really good. But you're not leadership material. The words hit like a physical blow. I blinked, trying to process what I'd just heard. I'm sorry, what? People like you are better behind the scenes. You're detail-oriented, reliable, great at execution. But leadership? That requires a different kind of presence. A different kind of authority. People like you. The phrase echoed in my head, and I felt something cold settle in my stomach. I've been leading teams for 3 years, I said carefully. The Meridian project had 12 people across 4 departments. I coordinated with 6 different client stakeholders. We delivered under budget and ahead of schedule. Max waved his hand dismissively. Managing projects isn't the same as leadership, Jordan. Real leadership is about vision, about commanding respect. It's about being the kind of person others naturally want to follow. And you don't think I have that. I think you're excellent at what you do. But there's a difference between being a good individual contributor and being a leader. Some people are born with it, some aren't. It's not personal. It felt pretty fucking personal. So who are you promoting? I asked. Max smiled. Elliot Granger. He's got the right background, the right energy. MBA from Northwestern, 3 years at McKinsey. He understands the strategic side of things. Elliot Granger. The guy who'd been at Valorith for 8 months and had contributed exactly nothing to the Meridian project except a PowerPoint presentation full of buzzwords like synergistic optimization and leveraging core competencies. The guy who'd taken credit for my process improvements in the last client meeting. He never managed a team larger than 2 people. Elliot has been here less than a year, I said, keeping my voice level. Sometimes fresh perspective is exactly what we need. He's got ideas about scaling our service delivery, about positioning ourselves in the market. Big picture thinking. I sat there for a moment, processing. 7 years. 7 years of proving myself, of building relationships, of pulling this company's ass out of the fire more times than I could count. And they were promoting someone who'd been here 8 months because he had the right background. Is there anything else? I asked. I hope you'll support Elliot in this transition. You'll be invaluable to him as he gets up to speed. I nodded and stood up. Of course. Great. I knew you'd be professional about this. I walked out of Max's office feeling like I was underwater. Everything seemed muted, distant. I grabbed my laptop and headed for the parking garage. I needed to get out of there before I said something I couldn't take back. The worst part? I wasn't even surprised. Deep down, I'd known this was coming. I'd seen the way Max's eyes glazed over when I spoke in meetings. I'd watched him light up when Elliot presented my ideas with better PowerPoint animations. I'd noticed how he always addressed questions about my projects to the nearest male team member, even when I was standing right there. That night, I sat in my apartment with a glass of wine and my laptop. I created a new folder and stared at the blank label for a long time. Then I typed, blueprint. I didn't know what I was planning yet. But I knew I was planning something. The next Monday, I walked into the office like nothing had happened. I congratulated Elliot on his promotion, shook his hand, and told him I looked forward to working with him. His relief was obvious. He'd probably been worried about managing someone who'd been there 7 times longer than he had. "Jordan, I really want to learn from you," he said, all earnest MBA sincerity. "You know this place inside and out. I'm hoping we can work together to really optimize our delivery mechanisms." "Absolutely," I said. "I'm here to help." And I was. Just not in the way he expected. Over the next few weeks, I started paying attention to things I'd never noticed before. Not the daily grind of project management, but the bigger picture. The relationships. The dependencies. The things that would matter if someone wanted to, say, start their own consulting firm. I strengthened my client relationships, especially with Celeste Duran. Celeste ran a fast-growing AI analytics startup called Quantum Insights. They were technically a smaller account, only about $200,000 annually, but they were growing fast, and Celeste was exactly the kind of visionary leader I wished I worked for. "Jordan," she said during one of our check-ins, "I have to ask. Are you happy at Valorith?" I paused. Celeste had a way of asking questions that cut right to the heart of things. "What makes you ask that? You're clearly the brains behind everything we've worked on together. But whenever I'm in meetings with your leadership team, they treat you like you're just there to take notes. It's frustrating to watch." "I'm focused on doing good work," I said carefully. "That's admirable. But you should be running your own shop." I filed that comment away. Meanwhile, I started noticing how my colleagues were reacting to the promotion. Tessa Nguyen, our head UX designer, had been increasingly quiet in meetings. She'd started showing up to strategy sessions I was leading, even when UX wasn't directly involved. "Just want to observe," she'd say. "Learn how you run things." Andre Cole, our software architect, had been acting strange too. He'd started rewriting some of our core systems in what he called modular form, basically making them easier to migrate or replicate. When I asked him about it, he shrugged. "Just cleaning things up. Making the code more portable." Santiago Rivera, our project manager, was the most direct. He cornered me in the break room one Wednesday afternoon. "This is bullshit," he said without preamble. "You should have gotten that promotion." "It's fine, Santi. I'm not bitter." "You should be. You've been leading this team for years. Elliot doesn't know the first thing about client management." "He'll learn." Santi looked at me for a long moment. "If you ever started your own thing," he said quietly, "would you bring me?" I almost choked on my coffee. "What?" "Just hypothetically. If you went independent, would you consider bringing me along?" "Santi, I'm not." "I know. Hypothetically." I looked at him, really looked at him. Santi was one of the best project managers I'd ever worked with. Detail-oriented, great with people, unflappable under pressure. He'd been at Valorith for 5 years, and he was exactly the kind of person you'd want on your team if you were starting something new. "Hypothetically," I said slowly, "you'd be the first person I'd call." He nodded and walked away, leaving me standing there with my coffee and a growing realization that I wasn't the only one who was unhappy. That afternoon, I got a call from Lauren Beck, our HR director. Lauren was one of those people who knew everything that happened in the office but never said anything directly. She asked if I wanted to grab coffee after work. "How are you handling the transition?" she asked once we were seated at a corner table at the coffee shop down the street. "Fine. Elliot's got good ideas." Lauren smiled. "Jordan, you don't have to perform for me. I know this situation sucks." I studied her face. Lauren had been at Valorith for 12 years. She'd seen everything, survived 3 different ownership changes, and had a reputation for being absolutely neutral in office politics. If she was talking to me about this, it meant something. "I'm handling it," I said. "I'm sure you are. But I want you to know something. Max is under pressure to cut costs. The board is asking questions about our overhead, our project margins. He's got to show results, and soon." "What kind of results?" "The kind that might involve layoffs." But he won't touch executives. Too much political risk. I felt a chill. How many people are we talking about? I don't know yet. But Jordan? You're good at what you do. Really good. If things get bad here, you'll land on your feet. It was the closest thing to advice I'd ever heard from Lauren. And it sounded a lot like a warning. That night, I opened my blueprint folder and started typing. Client relationships. Team capabilities. Market analysis. Technology assets. I wasn't planning anything specific yet. Just documenting. The next week, Celeste called me directly instead of going through the usual channels. Jordan, I need to ask you something. Are you free for lunch tomorrow? We met at a small Italian place downtown. Celeste was in her mid-50s, sharp as hell, and had built Quantum Insights from nothing into a $10 million company in 3 years. She was exactly the kind of entrepreneur I admired. I'm going to be direct, she said after we ordered. Have you ever thought about going independent? My heart started racing. What do you mean? I mean starting your own consulting firm. You're clearly the talent behind everything Valerith does for us. And frankly, I'm tired of paying their markup when you're doing all the work. I'm happy at Valerith. Are you? Because every time I'm in a meeting with your leadership team, I watch them dismiss your ideas and then present them as their own 5 minutes later. It's insulting. I didn't know what to say. Look, Celeste continued, Quantum Insights is about to close our Series B funding. We're going to need serious consulting support over the next 18 months. I'd rather work with someone I trust than some corporate outfit that treats their best people like secretaries. Celeste, I appreciate the confidence, but just think about it. If you ever decide to make a move, call me. I'll be your first client. I walked back to the office in a daze. By the time I got to my desk, I'd made a decision. I opened my laptop and started a new document, Nova North Consulting, Business Plan. I didn't know if I was actually going to do it. But I was going to plan like I was. 2 weeks later, I was ready. I'd spent those 2 weeks working harder than I'd ever worked in my life. Not on Valerith projects, those I handled efficiently, professionally, the way I always had. I was working on something else entirely. Market research, competitive analysis, financial projections, legal structure. I'd talked to 3 different lawyers about non-compete clauses and client poaching laws. I'd researched business licenses, insurance requirements, tax implications. I'd built a complete business plan for a consulting firm that didn't exist yet. More importantly, I'd had very careful conversations with the people who mattered. Hypothetically, I'd said to Tessa during one of our morning coffee runs, if someone were to start an independent consulting firm, what would be the biggest challenges? Talent retention, she'd said immediately. You can't compete with corporate benefits packages. But you can compete on culture, on respect, on actually valuing people's contributions. Hypothetically, I'd said to Andre while we were reviewing system architecture, how portable is our current tech stack? Very portable, he'd said. Especially if someone had been making it more modular over the past few months. Hypothetically, I'd said to Santi during one of our project reviews, what would it take to manage client relationships outside of a large corporate structure? Trust, he'd said. Clients don't care about your company's brand. They care about whether you deliver results. And you always deliver results. By the end of those 2 weeks, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And I knew who was going to do it with me. I scheduled a meeting with Max for 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. I'd chosen Tuesday because Mondays were chaotic and Fridays were too casual. Tuesday was serious. Tuesday meant business. What can I do for you, Jordan? Max asked, not looking up from his computer. I'm giving my notice. That got his attention. He looked up, eyebrows raised. What? I'm resigning from Valerith. My last day will be 2 weeks from today. Max leaned back in his chair. Jordan, if this is about the promotion. It's not about the promotion. Then what? Another offer? We can match it. I'm starting my own consulting firm. Max actually laughed. Jordan, that's not realistic. You have no idea what it takes to run a business. Client acquisition, business development, financial management, these aren't skills you just pick up overnight. I understand your concern. Do you? Because I'm trying to help you here. You're about to make a huge mistake. You'll be back in 6 months, and there might not be a position for you. I appreciate the feedback. Max's expression hardened. You know, I always thought you were smarter than this. But I guess I was wrong. You'll regret leaving a stable career for some fantasy about being an entrepreneur. Maybe. But I'd rather fail at something I believe in than succeed at something that doesn't value me. I stood up and headed for the door. Jordan, Max called after me. You won't be able to compete with us. We have resources, relationships, reputation. You'll have a laptop and a dream. I turned back. We'll see. I walked out of Max's office and straight to my desk. I opened my laptop and sent 3 emails. The first was to Celeste, available for lunch tomorrow? I have a proposition. The second was to Tessa, Andre, and Santi, coffee after work? I have something to discuss. The third was a company-wide email announcing my resignation and thanking everyone for their support over the years. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing with messages. Colleagues expressing shock, clients asking what was happening, friends wanting to know the story. I answered them all professionally, briefly, and without any drama. The coffee meeting that evening was surreal. I'd reserved a corner table at a place across town from the office, somewhere we wouldn't run into anyone from Valerith. So, Tessa said once we were all seated, you actually did it. I did it. And? Santi asked. I looked at the 3 of them, colleagues who'd become friends, professionals I respected, people I'd trusted with my career. I want you to come with me. The silence stretched for a moment. Then Andre spoke up. What exactly are you proposing? I pulled out my laptop and opened the business plan I'd been working on. Nova North Consulting. Boutique technology consulting firm. We focus on mid-market companies that need high-level strategic and technical support but don't want to pay corporate overhead. How boutique? Tessa asked. Small team, high-value clients. We're not trying to compete with Valerith on size. We're competing on results, on relationships, on actually caring about our clients' success. What about startup costs? Santi asked. I've got enough saved to cover initial expenses for 6 months. Office space, equipment, insurance, legal fees. And I've already got our first client. Who? Andre asked. Quantum Insights. Celeste Duran. She's offered us a $300,000 contract for the next 12 months. The numbers got their attention. At Valerith, none of us made more than $120,000 annually. A $300,000 contract split 4 ways, even after expenses, would mean significantly more money than any of us were making now. What about non-competes? Tessa asked. I've had 3 lawyers review them. They're enforceable for direct competitors, but not for independent consulting. As long as we're not specifically targeting Valerith as clients, we're fine. What about benefits? Andre asked. I've researched group plans. We can match what Valerith offers, maybe even improve on it. They exchanged glances. I could see them thinking, calculating, considering. When would you need an answer? Santi asked. Take your time. But if you're going to do this, I'd suggest staggering your resignations. Don't all quit at once. It looks better professionally, and it gives us time to transition properly. Over the next 2 weeks, they each made their decision. Tessa gave her notice first, citing a desire to work on more diverse projects. Andre followed a week later, saying he wanted to focus on more innovative technical challenges. Santi was last, explaining that he was looking for opportunities with more direct client interaction. Max tried to counteroffer each of them. He offered raises, promotions, better project assignments. But by then, it was too late. They'd seen what I was building, and they wanted to be part of it. On my last day at Valerith, I cleaned out my desk and said goodbye to the colleagues who were staying. Lauren Beck walked me to the elevator. I stayed neutral, she said quietly. But Jordan? He's not sleeping well. What do you mean? Maximum. He's been asking questions about client contracts, about intellectual property agreements. He's worried. About what? About whether you're going to take clients with you. I smiled. I'm not taking anyone. But I can't help it if they call me. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside and turned back to face Lauren. For what it's worth, she said, I think you're going to do great. As the elevator descended, I felt something I hadn't felt in years at Valerith: excitement. Not nervousness, not anxiety, but genuine excitement about what came next. My phone buzzed. A text from Celeste: congratulations on your freedom. See you Monday. I smiled and put my phone away. Monday couldn't come fast enough. The first sign that Valerith was struggling came 3 weeks after we'd all left. I was in my new office, a shared workspace downtown that was about 1/10 the size of Valerith's headquarters but infinitely more comfortable, when my phone rang. Jordan? This is Rebecca Martinez from Pinnacle Systems. Pinnacle was one of Valerith's mid-tier clients, a manufacturing company that did about $500,000 annually in consulting work. I'd managed their account for 2 years. Hi Rebecca. How are you? Confused. Honestly. We had a project kickoff meeting with Valerith yesterday, and Elliot showed up with a completely different strategy than what we discussed last month. He kept talking about leveraging synergistic optimizations and maximizing value-add deliverables. I have no idea what any of that means. I winced. Classic Elliot. When in doubt, add more buzzwords. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sure he's just trying to. Jordan, can I ask you something? Are you taking on independent clients? My heart rate picked up. Why do you ask? Because I need someone who actually understands our business. Someone who doesn't think the solution to every problem is a PowerPoint presentation with fancy animations. I was quiet for a moment. This was the moment I'd been both hoping for and dreading. Rebecca, I'd be happy to discuss your needs. But I want to be completely transparent. I recently started my own consulting firm. Nova North? Yeah, I found your website. Looks interesting. You looked us up. Jordan, you saved us $200,000 last year when you redesigned our inventory management system. You think I'm not going to keep track of where you end up? 2 days later, Pinnacle Systems terminated their contract with Valerith and signed with Nova North. The contract was worth $400,000, smaller than what they'd been paying Valerith, but we had lower overhead and could offer more competitive rates. The second client came a week later. TechFlow Dynamics, a software company that Valerith had been working with for 3 years. Their CEO, Marcus Chen, called me directly. Jordan, we need to talk. Our project is falling apart. TechFlow was a complex account, a software company that needed both technical architecture and strategic planning. It was exactly the kind of multidisciplinary project that played to my team's strengths. What's happening? I asked. Elliot assigned the technical work to some contractors who don't understand our platform. They've been working for 2 weeks and haven't delivered a single functional module. Meanwhile, he's been presenting strategic recommendations that make no sense for our market. I'm sorry to hear that. Jordan, I'm going to be direct. We want to work with you. All of us, me, my CTO, my head of product. We've been talking about it since we heard you'd started your own firm. Marcus, I appreciate the confidence, but we're terminating with Valerith. The question is whether you're interested in our business. I looked around my small office. Tessa was at her desk, working on user experience flows for Quantum Insights. Andre was deep in code, building out a new analytics platform. Santi was on a call with a prospective client, his voice animated and engaged in a way I'd never heard at Valerith. Yes, I said. We're interested. By the end of the month, Nova North had 4 clients and $1.2 million in contracted revenue. We were busier than we'd ever been at Valerith, but we were also happier. There was something energizing about working directly with decision-makers, about having our recommendations actually implemented, about being valued for our expertise rather than just our ability to execute someone else's vision. The third sign that Valerith was struggling came from an unexpected source, a reporter from TechCrunch. Ms. West? This is Amanda Rodriguez from TechCrunch. I'm working on a story about the consulting industry, and I'd love to talk to you about your experience starting Nova North. I was immediately suspicious. What kind of story? We're looking at how the industry is changing, how smaller firms are competing with established players. Your name came up in several conversations as someone who's built something interesting. How did you hear about us? Celeste Duran at Quantum Insights. She said you're doing innovative work in the AI analytics space. She suggested I talk to you about the future of agile strategy consulting. The interview was supposed to be a brief phone call. It turned into an hour-long conversation about leadership, about the difference between management and actual strategic thinking, about what it meant to build a company that valued results over politics. The article ran 2 weeks later with the headline "The Future of Consulting: Why Small Firms Are Outmaneuvering Corporate Giants." My photo ran next to a quote that I'd forgotten I'd said: "Leadership isn't about having the biggest office or the most impressive PowerPoint deck. It's about trust, results, and actually caring about your client's success." The day the article went live, my phone didn't stop ringing. Prospective clients, reporters wanting follow-up interviews, former colleagues asking about opportunities. It was overwhelming and exhilarating. But the most interesting call came from someone I hadn't expected to hear from. "Jordan, this is Lauren Beck." "Lauren? How are you?" "I'm good. Listen, I'm calling because I wanted to give you a heads up. You're making waves." "What do you mean?" "Max has been agitated since that TechCrunch article came out. He's been asking questions about your business, about your clients, about whether you're violating any non-compete agreements." "Lauren, I've been very careful about." "I know. And I've told him that. But he's not handling this well. He's lost 3 major clients in 2 months, and the board is asking questions." "What kind of questions?" "The kind that involve terms like leadership transition and strategic reorganization." I felt a chill. "Are you saying Max is in trouble?" "I'm saying that when a company loses 30% of its project revenue in 2 months, people start looking for someone to blame." "I didn't steal those clients, Lauren. They came to me." "I know. But Max is telling a different story. He's saying you poached them, that you used inside information to undercut Valoritha's proposals." I was quiet for a moment, processing. "What do you think I should do?" "Nothing. Keep doing what you're doing. But be prepared for him to do something stupid." She was right. 2 days later, a courier delivered a cease and desist letter to my office. It was from Valoritha's legal team, accusing me of violating my non-compete agreement and demanding that I stop soliciting their clients. I forwarded the letter to my lawyer, who called me back within an hour. "Jordan, this is bullshit. You're not in violation of anything. But they're trying to scare you. What should I do?" "We respond professionally, we document everything, and we let them know that if they want to pursue this, we're ready for a fight." The legal posturing continued for another week. Letters back and forth, accusations and denials, the usual dance of corporate litigation. But then something unexpected happened. Max called me directly. "Jordan, I think we need to talk." "About what?" "About a potential acquisition. Nova North is obviously doing well, and we're looking at ways to expand our service offerings. Maybe we can work something out." I almost laughed. "You want to buy us?" "I want to explore options. You've got a good thing going, but you're going to hit scaling challenges. We have infrastructure, resources, established relationships. We could offer you a path to real growth." "What kind of offer?" "Come in and we'll discuss it. But I'm thinking 7 figures, plus equity positions for your team." I hung up and immediately called Tessa, Andre, and Santi into my office. "Max wants to buy us," I said without preamble. "What?" Tessa asked. "He just called. He wants to discuss an acquisition." "How much?" Andre asked. "He mentioned 7 figures." They were quiet for a moment. Then Santi started laughing. "He's panicking," he said. "He's lost clients, he's probably in trouble with the board, and now he wants to buy the company that's eating his lunch." "What do you think?" I asked. "I think," Tessa said slowly, "that we should frame the offer letter." "What do you mean?" "I mean we should turn him down, and then we should hang his offer letter in the break room as a reminder of how far we've come." Andre nodded. "I didn't leave Valorith to go back to Valorith." "Plus," Santi added, "if he's offering 7 figures now, imagine what we'll be worth in 2 years." I looked at the 3 of them, my partners, my friends, my chosen family. They were right. We hadn't come this far to sell out to the same system that had dismissed us. "So we're saying no." "We're saying hell no," Tessa said. I called Max back that afternoon. I appreciate the offer, but we're not interested in being acquired. Jordan, think about this carefully. You're going to face challenges you're not prepared for. Competition, scaling issues, client retention. Max, I've been dealing with those challenges for 7 years. The only difference is that now I'm getting paid what I'm worth. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. I hung up and turned to my team. Back to work. Back to work, they said in unison. That night, I walked around our small office, looking at the whiteboards covered with project timelines, the desks arranged in a circle so we could all see each other, the wall where we'd hung thank you notes from clients. It wasn't much, but it was ours. My phone buzzed. A text from Celeste, saw the TechCrunch article. Proud of you. Can't wait to see what you build next. I smiled and put my phone away. Neither could I. 6 months later, I was standing in front of 200 people at the Tech Strategy Summit in Austin, about to give a keynote speech on the future of leadership in consulting. The same conference where, 3 years earlier, I'd sat in the audience listening to CEOs talk about innovation while I took notes for my boss. Leadership isn't given, I said, looking out at the crowd. It's not inherited, it's not appointed, and it's definitely not guaranteed by your MBA or your previous job title. Leadership is proven. Every day, in every interaction, in every decision that puts results over politics and people over process. The response was immediate and electric. People were nodding, leaning forward, taking notes. When I finished, the room erupted in applause that lasted nearly 2 minutes. Afterward, a young woman approached me during the networking session. She introduced herself as Maria Santos, a senior analyst at a consulting firm in Denver. Your talk really resonated with me, she said. I'm dealing with something similar at my company. I've been there for 5 years, I lead all the technical work, but they keep promoting people who've been there half as long. What's your background? I asked. Computer science degree, MBA, 3 years of experience before this job. I redesigned their entire project management system last year, and my manager presented it to the board as his idea. I felt a familiar surge of frustration and recognition. What do you want to do about it? I want to do what you did. But I don't know how to start. I smiled. Would you like to grab coffee tomorrow? I have some ideas. That conversation led to something I hadn't expected when I started Nova North, mentorship. Within a month, I was talking to 3 different women who were dealing with similar situations. Within 6 months, we'd formalized it into a program called Leadership Proven, a mentorship network for women and minorities in consulting who were ready to take control of their careers. The program wasn't just about starting independent firms. Some of the people we worked with ended up getting promoted at their current companies, armed with better negotiation skills and a clearer sense of their value. Others made strategic career moves to companies that appreciated their contributions. And yes, some of them started their own firms. But all of them learned the same lesson I'd learned. Leadership isn't about waiting for someone else to recognize your worth. It's about recognizing it yourself and then proving it through results. Nova North itself continued to grow. By the end of our first year, we had 12 clients and $2.8 million in revenue. We'd hired 2 additional consultants, both women, both brilliant, both refugees from companies that had undervalued them. We'd moved into a real office, with conference rooms and a kitchen and a break room where Max's acquisition offer hung in a frame, a reminder of how far we'd come. The break room also featured a whiteboard where we tracked our wins. Client testimonials, project successes, team achievements. But my favorite thing on that board was a simple list titled What We've Learned. Trust is more valuable than hierarchy. Results matter more than politics. Small teams can outmaneuver large organizations. Clients care about outcomes, not office space. Leadership is a practice, not a position. Around the same time, I started hearing rumors about what was happening at Valorith. Through the consulting industry grapevine, which is surprisingly small and surprisingly gossipy, I learned that Max had been quietly pushed out by the board. Officially, it was called early retirement. Unofficially, it was a recognition that he'd lost the confidence of both clients and employees. Elliot had lasted 6 months as VP of Strategy before being reassigned to business development, which everyone understood was corporate speak for find another job. The projects I'd been managing were now being handled by a team of 4 people, none of whom had been there longer than 2 years. But the most interesting development came from an unexpected source, a call from Lauren Beck. "Jordan, I have a proposition for you." "What kind of proposition?" "I'm leaving Valerith. And I want to talk to you about joining Nova North." I was stunned. "Lauren, you've been there for 12 years. "Exactly. And I've watched this company go from a place where good work was valued to a place where politics matter more than results. I want to